The echoing footsteps in the hospital corridor cut through the silence of the night. The young man took deep breaths, glancing down at the paper in his hands once more. The bold letters at the top read, "Living Kidney Donation Agreement." A sharp pang hit his chest as he read the words again. His name was Michael Carter, 19 years old, a hopeful pre-med student. But that hope had started fading the moment his mother was diagnosed with cancer. The medical bills had drained them completely, leaving them struggling even to pay rent. Scholarships had covered part of his tuition, but his mother's medication was more important than any degree. Today was the day. A day with no turning back. He was going to sell his kidney. As he waited outside the hospital on the morning of his surgery, he took a deep breath. He gazed up at the sky as if someone somewhere was watching over him. That's when he noticed a man sitting at the table beside him. Denzel Washington. Denzel casually sipped his coffee, but his eyes immediately locked onto the young man's face, sensing something deeper than just nervousness. He leaned in slightly and spoke in a calm yet firm voice.
"Son, what happened to you?"
Michael hesitated. For a few seconds he said nothing. Then, with a faint, weary smile, he sighed.
It doesn't matter. Sometimes you just have to lose something, right?
Denzel narrowed his eyes. He could see the storm raging inside this boy, but he didn't know the whole story yet. Denzel could see it. The exhaustion on the boy's face, the weight in his eyes. He looked far too young to carry such a heavy burden. His shoulders were slumped, his hands clenched tightly around his coffee cup. Not even a flicker of a smile crossed his face. Leaning forward slightly, Denzel locked eyes with the young man and spoke in a calm but firm voice.
"Don't lie to me, son. Your eyes are telling me something different."
Michael didn't lift his head. He swallowed hard before finally speaking, his voice low and strained.
I got accepted into med school. I've worked my whole life for this, but...
He hesitated, as if just finishing that sentence would cause him pain. Denzel waited patiently.
But my mom has cancer. The treatment is expensive. We're drowning in debt. I can't even think about college anymore. She comes first.
Denzel nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing slightly.
"So you think your future is the price you have to pay for her life?"
Michael let out a dry chuckle. It wasn't the laugh of a carefree young man. It was the bitter, hollow sound of someone suppressing his pain.
It's just a kidney, right? People can live with one.
Denzel's expression hardened. That was it. This boy was selling his kidney. He leaned back, studying Michael carefully.
"And have you thought about the cost, son?"
Is it cost? I'm already paying a bigger one. I just don't want to lose her.
Denzel took a deep breath. This kid was about to make the biggest decision of his life, and he had to stop him.
"Look, Michael, maybe you can live with one kidney, but what about years from now? What if you need it someday? What if you regret it?"
What could be worse than losing her?
Denzel didn't look at him with pity because he knew that wasn't what Michael needed. What he needed was someone to guide him.
"Selling your kidney isn't a solution. I know you're doing this for your mom, but do you know what she needs most?"
Michael hesitated, his vision blurring.
Money, treatment.
"No, son. What she needs most is you. She needs to see her son looking forward to the future. She needs to know you're not giving up."
Michael looked away, his voice barely above a whisper.
I don't have another choice. I can't afford my tuition. I can't pay for her medical bills. Where else can I get the money?
No one carries luck in their pocket, Michael. But sometimes, someone can offer it to you.
What do you mean?
Denzel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card, placing it on the table. There was nothing on it except a phone number.
"Call this number. Not now, but before you make any decisions."
Michael picked up the card, turning it between his fingers before looking at Denzel skeptically.
What could you possibly do for me?
Denzel's smile remained, but his eyes carried something deeper, certainty.
"Maybe nothing, but maybe everything."
Michael's hands trembled slightly as he slipped the card into his pocket, but inside his mind there was still a war raging. His mother's fragile face, the mountain of hospital bills, the cold, sterile lights of the operating room, and now, the man sitting across from him. But there was something different. For the first time in a long while, Denzel Washington's eyes carried something Michael had lost: hope. That day, Michael never made it to the hospital. He sat in his room, staring at the small card, flipping it between his fingers over and over again. Would he call? Or would he let things play out as they were? Because sometimes, a single decision doesn't just alter the course of a moment. It changes the course of an entire life, and Michael was about to make the biggest decision of his. That day, Michael never went to the hospital. Instead, he spent the entire night thinking about that small card. But by the time he had made up his mind, it was already too late. Because when he arrived at the hospital the next morning, he was told that all of his debts had been paid, completely, and no one knew who had done it. Michael rushed to the hospital administration office, demanding to know how his debts had disappeared, but the receptionist simply shrugged.
The donor chose to remain anonymous. If they ever want to reveal themselves, they will contact you.
Michael's mind was racing. Who could have done this? 1,000 possibilities ran through his head, but none of them made sense. For days, he searched for answers. Sleep was impossible. And then, he remembered the man he had met that morning at the cafe, Denzel Washington. Determined, Michael did everything he could to track him down. He researched him, listened to stories of people he had helped, and followed every event he was involved in. Eventually, he found out that Denzel would be attending a major charity gala. Without hesitation, he made his way there. Pushing through the crowd, his heart pounded as he finally spotted Denzel. He took a deep breath and approached him, his pulse racing.
It was you, wasn't it? You paid my debts.
Denzel gave a small smile but shook his head.
Son, some questions don't need answers. The real question is, what will you do now?
Michael's hands trembled. There was something deeper in Denzel's words, but in that moment, gratitude overwhelmed him. With tears welling in his eyes, he asked,
But why?
Denzel locked eyes with him, seeing not just a lost boy, but a young man standing at the edge of a new future.
Because I believe in you, Michael. And sometimes all people need is a chance.
Michael closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he truly felt indebted to someone, but Denzel only smiled.
This isn't a debt, son. It's a gift. Now it's your turn.
Michael nodded slowly. Something inside him shifted. He wasn't alone anymore, and for the first time in a long time, he felt hope. Years passed. Michael had made it. He graduated from medical school with honors. He was now a young doctor, filled with hope and purpose. But the most important day of his life wasn't the day he put on his white coat. It was the day he saw his mother, healthy and smiling again. And when he finally found Denzel again, he was no longer the lost, desperate boy from years ago. Standing tall, Michael lowered his gaze for a moment before lifting his head with determination.
I'm ready to repay what I owe.
And how do you plan to do that?
By giving someone else a chance.
From that day forward, Michael created a scholarship fund for young medical students struggling financially. No one would have to give up their dreams just to survive. Denzel watched him, nodding slightly. And in that moment, he knew a real chain of kindness had begun. And you? Are you ready to give someone a chance?